Welcome to the Real Estate Fight Club, a podcast for agents where you'll witness a battle of opinions about topics affecting your real estate business. Now, always in your corner, here are your hosts, Jenn Mertland and Monica Weekly.
Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Fight Club. What's up, Jay Mert?
What up, Monica?
How you doing today?
Hashtag fight me.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, good. I'm ready too. I got my boxing gloves on, ready to go after this. Thanks to everybody joining us. We appreciate you being here as always. And today, Jen and I are going to duke it out over this question. Do you think that professional ethics trump personal ethics?
Oh my God.
So do professional ethics kind of come first over personal? How do these two things work together for agents? Let's hash this out. I can't even imagine what you're going to say. I feel like I don't even know you on this subject.
I don't know what I'm going to say either. I think we need to create a little bit of context. So the NAR came down with some new rules and regulations for real estate agents. And I think at face value, the rules, they kind of made sense, right? But at what point does your profession dictate your ethics? And at what point do they override your personal ethics? Because at some point there will be a disagreement potentially. It feels like we're headed that way.
Can you give me an example where those two things might cross?
Well, sure I can.
Okay.
So there was I think it was a guy in Montana who was, he's a minister, but he's also a real estate agent. And so he's part of the clergy of, I don't know what kind of church it is, but a church where they feel that homosexuality is against the Bible teachings. Okay. Mm-hmm. So him and his, I don't even know what they're called, the members of the church.
Yeah, sure. Congregation.
The congregation.
Yeah.
No, this is my understanding of the story. So normally they participate in this food pantry, this a third party food pantry. Mm-hmm. But the third party food pantry wanted them to put flyers in there about the LGBT community and embracing them and all this stuff. And he was like, this is really against what we teach. So we're going to do our own food pantry this year, whatever. Well, he's a realtor, and NAR came down with a no hate speech. So somebody, I guess, said they felt like that was a violation of him being a realtor, and they figured it was in line with hate speech. And so he's now I don't think he ended up getting in trouble. I think I don't remember the exact outcome, but basically they're saying I guess the question is he acting as a realtor where we are we have a duty to kind of help and serve everybody equally, regardless of, I mean, we have a fair housing issue, right? That's a federal law. But now we have this NAR code of ethics that says, one, is that hate speech? I think they were saying it was not hate speech.
Right.
Because he didn't shout slurs about.
Right. He wasn't posting about we won't feed the LGBTQ community.
Right. Deserve to eat. That wasn't happening, right? But he was we're just gonna go play over here in our corner. But then at the same time, it's okay, but he was also acting as the pastor of his church, and that's what their church believes. So I guess the part of the problem is when religion comes in to play. So I don't know.
Wow.
Hey there, you liking this video? Go ahead and hit subscribe so you get all the latest videos.
He's a member of the LGBTQ community.
Yes. Full disclosure, I am obviously a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And I guess to break this down, I think that the question is the NAR ethics are really driven around you acting as an agent in a fiduciary responsibility, right? Or is that saying we have to behave in a certain way even outside of our
That's the
duties?
question. So
Mhm.
he was not being a realtor at the time, and yet
Right.
it went to an ethics committee. So
Yeah.
at what point does your professional life dictate when you're in your personal life?
Mhm, mhm,
I mean, like, it
mhm.
seems, while I disagree with him on a moral, ethical level, I
Mhm,
still
mhm.
think he, like, for me, I think he has the right to be like, I don't want to participate in that because we as a group don't believe that. I mean, there's how many churches out there say that
Yeah.
it's against the Bible? Like, so many. I mean, all of
Right.
them, right? Like, pretty much.
Right. And we can disagree with that, but for the purpose of this conversation, we have to acknowledge that there are those beliefs out there,
Yeah,
and
so
they're
where does
usually
it trump
rooted
like
in
free
religion.
speech? Yes,
Yeah, right.
and yeah, and even if this specific instance is not is one that most of us can say, like, I mean, we don't think hate speech is a good thing, right? Like, nobody thinks that.
Mhm,
But it's
right,
like,
right.
one, do we really have to say it?
Right. Unfortunately, in the environment that we've created over the last, say, few years, yeah, apparently we do have to say it. We have to say no hate speech. Yes.
And there's going to be a rule at some point as a realtor that you're supposed to behave in a certain way
Mhm.
that will at some point go against what you believe is your personal ethics. It will happen, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
so where's that line?
Well, I think the line comes in where you will have to make a decision about your license. Because if you are licensed and you are a member of the NAR, then you must operate under those codes. That's just a part of having your license. If at some point you have to make a decision like, I either have to follow the code of NAR ethics or go against my ethical beliefs, which I'm not sure, obviously that example, not quite the same, but if that happens, I think you have to determine whether or not you're going to walk away from your license because you've agreed to play the game. You've
Yeah.
gotten your license. You've agreed to play the game by their rules. That's it. Right. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, I just feel like at some point, like, these professional rules and standards, like, there are laws in place against discrimination, like actual laws. And like
Mhm.
that seems like that should be kind of it, right? So then
Mhm.
you have like the code of ethics and the standards of practices and conduct and things like that. But
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I just feel like we have bigger fish to fry than that because there are laws in place for this type of stuff.
Yes, in theory, I agree with you. The problem is we have 4 million
And that's
realtors.
the problem. Blow that shit.
We've got a very large pool of people, and you have to have tight guidelines when you've
But they're
got
not tight.
the
Like,
freaking
one
Wild
person's
West.
hate speech is somebody else. Like, who determines that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's been the long time issue,
yeah,
right? I mean, the battle of free speech and hate speech, and
right.
now we're laying this like
Balance.
NAR ethics code on top of all of this. And but I think like in my simple brain, which is all I've got, is when you agree to play by the rules of your governing body, the license, that you've agreed to take, then you've got to play by those rules if you want to continue having that license.
I agree. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I just think that, like, probably for me on this topic, like, as I don't really like a lot of rules. So I think they have too many rules and things when we have like other issues to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, we have to treat customers fairly. Like, it is the law, like the actual law.
Right. Do we need all this
We don't need all this other
governing body on
stuff.
top of it?
Like, did you treat somebody unfairly while you were doing real estate? Like, are you allowed to treat people unfairly in your personal life? Or I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's insane.
Well, somewhere along the way, all of these laws and ethics codes have been created because somebody effed up, right? Like we've had an issue.
So this one specifically, like, we did a Better Call Saul on this. This one specifically feels like a reaction because of the climate. So because of the social climate, rather than, because if somebody violated this law, right, then they probably violated fair housing.
Yeah, and I'm a member of the LGBTQ, and I'm sorry that this man feels this way. Of course, I obviously completely disagree with him. However, it is his right to not participate in a fun, charitable kind of event that, doesn't align with him. I think that's outside of the scope of his role as an agent.
I agree. I think I agree with you in that there are certain things that we have to participate because we have the license, right? And you said is true, but I think that these rules and guidelines need to be minimal because I don't know, because we have laws.
You think there's duplicated?
Oh my God, have you looked at even a contract? So duplicate. The contract itself is duplicated.
I know, it's so true.
Oh my God, every time I get an addendum from a buyer agent, I'm like, dude, this is literally in the contract. Yeah, well, we want to put it on an addendum. Why? Have you read the contract? It's in there.
I think duplication is going to be the top of your list of things that irritates you then.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that irritate me, but when I found out too, thanks to Chris Summer, he said that it's not a czaress, it's a czarina.
A czarina.
Of czarina. Don't you
I like that
it?
better. You are the czarina of real estate.
Like a tiara.
Let's break, and then let me ask a question, a different kind of ethical situation when we come back, maybe.
All right, cool. Yeah, let's take a break and hear a word from our partners. And when we return, Monica's going to put the smack down.
Hey guys, it's Monica and Jen from the Real Estate Fight Club. We wanted to give a big shout out to one of our favorite partners, that is Coach John Kitchens.
Yes, he's so good.
He is. He's the best. And go to the link below for a special offer from John for just you, our podcast listeners.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, welcome back to the battle inside of the ring. Today we're tiptoeing around a bunch of stuff ethically. And
oh my God.
Trying not to get in trouble with the NAR, who apparently listens to us every once in a while. So here's my question. There are some things, and gosh, I'm a horrible agent for maybe not knowing this exactly, but there are some things that are a little gray in the professional code where your personal ethics would probably bubble up in a real estate role. For instance, not having to disclose something that horrible that happened in the house, like a personal event of some sort.
Right.
But knowing in your heart that that is something that would be important to a buyer, but you're representing the seller. How do you talk to your seller about wouldn't it just be right to disclose the whole thing, even though maybe the letter of the law says you don't have to disclose everything?
I mean, I think you have to decide that for yourself, right? You have to be if it were me, because these have come up, right? And it's hey, we should probably take down your Nazi flag. We probably disclose that there's a ghost in here. We should probably, do this stuff. You want to sell your house, right? This is important. They're going to find out. Let's just disclose it. Let's just
do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Yeah. And most people I find do.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't, and this has happened, they're like, no, I don't want to, take down my shrine or whatever it is. Right. You have to decide to yourself, okay, it doesn't make sense for me to work with this client.
Do I have to participate? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
You also have a choice.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
That's a damn choice.
And that's where I think in some cases, personal ethics trump professional, because I got to sleep with myself at night.
Yeah, but okay. So let's say there was something like that, but it was kind of a gray area. And they deemed it for whatever reason hate speech, and they took you to the board. You're risking that.
Well, I'd be real familiar. If it's gray, I would make sure I'm real familiar with the letter of the law. If I did decide to move forward, I would make sure that, of course, I wasn't crossing any lines there. If I was deciding whether or not to skirt around my own personal feelings on something.
Yeah.
Which I don't, because that is where I will say I feel strongly is I'm always going to want to put my head on the pillow at night and feel good about myself. I just 100% agree that. Yeah.
Yes.
And if I lose $30,000 because of it, so freaking be it. It always bites you in the ass anyway, somewhere down the road.
It's true. Well, and here's the thing, you can still be a real estate agent without being a member of NAR.
This is true. You just can't call yourself realtor.
We don't pronounce it right anyway.
Say it with me. No, you don't pronounce it right. Say it with me. Come on.
Realtor.
Nope. No, it is not.
Realtor.
Hey, for as much as you like efficiency and lack of duplication, like you're saying something that doesn't need to be there. You're wasting a lot of time with that.
I just like it. I like the A in the middle.
Realtor. Yeah. I don't know if our listeners know, but when we got busted by the NAR for having this used to be called Realtor Fight Club, we weren't allowed to use the name realtor, even though both of us are realtors.
Right.
Jenn wanted to call it Realtor Fight Club.
Hilarious. Like all lowercase except for the A in the middle. Like make that a giant capital. That's hilarious. But you were like, people are going to think we're stupid.
Yeah, I was afraid people would think we thought that was the right way to do it. Anyway,
I'm be interested to see like what happens because the social climate is changing, right? Like it's good, but it's also like, I don't believe that just because you aren't saying, like you're not saying something, or just because you actively participate because you're supposed to, doesn't mean you actually believe in what you're participating in. So I think it's a fine line, and it's going to be interesting how it plays out.
It is. It's funny we're having this conversation today because just today I had a situation where I had to call a broker down in the middle part of Kentucky. I'm licensed in Kentucky, but of course that's several hours away from where we generally sell.
Right.
And I won't go into the whole thing because it's a pretty long story, but I was asking for a favor because of that was by the letter of the law in Kentucky was not appropriate. It's not that it would have been breaking something, a law, like I don't think I could have gotten in trouble for it, but it could have opened up a can of worms. It could have caused a problem. And
rule breaker.
I wasn't obviously intending, of course, and it's been done a million times by all of us, but I got schooled by the broker down there who explained why she was so adamant about this not happening, and it had involved a lawsuit that she had been in. So once you've been in, you see things differently. And I could have been super irritated with her and made my argument, whatever. But you know what? In the end, she was freaking right.
Sounds right.
She was freaking right. And I was just trying to be not inconvenienced. And I was trying to get something done for my client and make it happen fast and blah, blah, blah. And she was right. And I'm humbled by her ability to say, check yourself here. Like
before you wreck yourself.
That's right. That's right. So even though you and I think operate out of the same, like, come on, it's going to be fine. Come on. Let's just, whatever. There are rules to help us not get ourselves in trouble in some cases too.
Well, and luckily we have those people that are rule followers, like Rachael and Jim from our What Would You Do episode.
Rachel and Jim and my wife and all the people. Yeah.
Exactly.
Editing this podcast right now. Love you, Sharon.
Hi, Shishi.
Keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Thanks I need a wife.
You do. Oh, then you can be part of the LGBTQ community and you can get mad at this freaking pastor or whatever.
Oh, Lord.
I'm just kidding. All right. I think that's going to have to be to the end of today. I really am curious what you guys think as the listeners and how you feel on this subject. Do your personal ethics, come into play and kind of trump even the professional standards we're required to follow? Or, do you just look at it like I'm following the letter of the law and I'm going to keep my own personal feelings out of this? I think that I'd be curious what you guys think. So
like
go ahead and go to
have run into.
what you've run into. Yeah. Please private message us or go to our Facebook page or Instagram page. We are Realtor Fight Club Podcast on both of those. We love hearing from you. We love you subscribing and sharing this content as well. We really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. And if you have questions about EXP, feel free to give Monica and I a call at 513-400-1691. All right. Yeah.
Real quick, they should also check out our YouTube page.
Yeah.
Real Estate Fight Club YouTube page. We do show the videos of these recordings. So if you like to see our mugs, you can go there.
We also have the video when we did this with Better Call Saul too. And he's got a cool perspective because he's been in real estate longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So if you guys have been listening, you probably realize Jenn does a couple spinoffs of this. We do this every week, but then Jenn also does What Would You Do? The WWYD, and then Better Call Saul, who is, he's plethora of information.
He's amazing.
He's like the original founder of the internet or something.
I know. He's like an encyclopedia. He's like Wikipedia and an Us Weekly.
Yes,
no, he doesn't really gossip. He's more Wikipedia.
That's right. All right. I'll see you next time.
Bye, Monica.
Bye.
All right, we have our tiebreaker here. You may recognize her voice from the What Would You Do episodes on Wednesday. Hey, Rachael Real.
Good morning, Jenn. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Fantastic.
So
what am I breaking a tie on for today? Who do I get to side with today?
Obviously me, of course. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, we'll see. I can't wait to figure out who I am siding with.
I know. The thing I like about you is you really don't play favorites. You're just
no, I don't.
Everybody's wrong, and here's the right way. Now come sit in the principal's office and take your
right. Come take a seat, take a number.
Right, exactly.
Right, so what are we talking about today?
All right. Do you think professional ethics trumps personal ethics?
So in what way? Are you talking about like behavior of an agent in a real estate transaction, or are you talking about like oversight of things like NAR and IAR and the code of ethics? Yeah. Kind of putting them, overseeing what you do on a basis, personally and professionally.
More like rules. If you have a professional rule that didn't really align with your, like the rules you have for yourself as a person in your personal life, what carries more weight?
Let me ask you this. So from a code of ethics standpoint,
supposed to be answering.
I know, right? But I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
So from a code of ethics standpoint, is there anything in the code of ethics, and I'm assuming you might be referencing some of the new articles that have just been added for 2022 or some of the modifications. Mm-hmm. Is there anything in there that you feel would put you in a position personally to dictate what your personal morals and ethics are over what the board and the NAR says? So, I mean, like for instance, NAR says you cannot discriminate, use hate speech, racial epithets, all kinds of different things when it comes to your professional life. Do you feel like there's a way really to separate that behavior from personal behavior? I guess I look at it and go, if the NAR tells me I have to not do that, let's hope I'm not doing that in real life. I almost feel like there is really almost no way to separate that, because I'm a person who like racial epithets and inappropriate slang words for different things or something that never comes out of my mouth. Right. So it would never come out of my mouth on a professional level either.
But you could be offensive.
I could be offensive?
Yeah, like part of it is, I mean, you could, like, I'm sure there's been times where somebody took what you said as like offensive, even though you did not have an intention of being offensive.
I guess I suppose it depends on what the intent is. So some of these new case interpretations discuss the intent behind what was said. So there's one particular case interpretation where they talk about a licensed realtor who's also leads a Bible study group in his church. Right. And they discuss, what different groups of people have said about different different statements. And so, in the course of one of these Bible study groups, a statement was said something to the effect of, some people have said X, Y, and Z about, this particular group, and someone filed a complaint.
Right.
So in that case, that realtor ultimately was found not in violation, only because, the way he framed it, which is, some people have said X, Y, and Z about this, is not putting his personal beliefs out, for people to assume that's what his personal beliefs are, but rather to start a discussion about a particular topic. Now, if someone uses the N-word on a regular basis, I don't know if I know that someone's using the N-word on a personal basis, on a regular basis, I'm not sure that's someone I would want to do business with.
Right.
Because I feel like if you're using, you don't just turn your language on and off based on what, who you're surrounded by. So I almost feel like, I can see where there's some thought where maybe that's overstepping a little bit. Just because when you're talking about, especially religious, the religious part of it, because when you have, when you have a large a trade organization determining what you can and can't say about your religion, that's the only part of it that I kind of feel like might get a little bit dicey. But otherwise, I think of someone in particular that I know that is a grossly unethical person, and also a grossly unethical agent.
Right.
I don't think there's any way that this particular person could divide and be ethical in a personal basis, in a personal level, and not and be ethical and professional on a professional level.
Like you are.
You are who you are. Like, it is what it is. So but I can see.
I think you're right. I think there is a lot of gray area there's a lot of gray area, one, and is that what the code of ethics will say is like our professional standards?
Right.
What is the purpose? I don't feel like the purpose of them is to dictate. I mean, it is to dictate how I behave, right? Like, that's the whole point, I guess, like as a real estate agent. But like,
I think the code of ethics in these particular articles and standards of practice are meant to ensure that we all behave in such a way that is professional, even when we're not acting in the capacity of a realtor. When you look at like the type of business that we're in.
Tell you that, or do you just do that?
Well, and that's the thing. I just do that because, again, that's just
right. That's you.
I don't think that there is any other,
and
I don't think there's a way to compartmentalize your ethics.
Right. Yeah.
You're either an ethical person or another. I'm not an unethical person. Nobody is going to tell me that I can be unethical personally, but I can't be unethical professionally.
Right. It's ridiculous. And if you are an unethical person, me telling you to be ethical is not going to change your behavior.
It doesn't do a damn bit of good. It's right.
What's the point? Like, so now we're on a bigger question is, do we even need the code of ethics? Probably.
Yes, I think you do, because it's holding people accountable to a set of rules and standards.
And fight on that.
Right. I know we are.
Please tune into What Would You Do?
Right, exactly. But I think that's the whole point of that, is to hold the realtor accountable for their behavior, for things that are, for rules and regulations that are specific only to the real estate business.
I agree. I think that's where I agree. And that's exactly where I think it needs to end. So adding in stuff, especially things that are already federal laws, and adding in things that are more social constructs, I think is where it gets a little bit hairy.
Yeah, I think it's more or less a way for them to be able to hold people accountable. And I mean, if you look at if somebody becomes a violator of one of these articles that talks about discrimination, so if they do that and they're found in violation one time, they come back a second time, they come back a third time, at some point, there's progressive discipline in these things. So if that happens after multiple times, then that agent may be in a position where they're going to lose a license, they're going to get suspended, they're no longer going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I have seen situations. There was one, it was several years ago, long before I even got into the business, in a neighboring town, where someone was found guilty of steering. and lost their license entirely.
As they should.
So they really, absolutely, you can't
But
just
how
take,
many cases
put
have
up
you-
buyers in your car and decide based on
Yeah.
the color of their skin where you're going to take them to look at houses. I mean, that's nuts.
That is. But how many times
Yeah.
have you seen agents that behave unethically that never get in trouble?
Often, because we have that constant push and pull of do I fulfill my obligation under the code of ethics to uphold the standards by bringing these people into a hearing and filing a complaint, so that because we're a self-policing industry, or do I say, well, I need to play nice in the sandbox later because I might have a listing that someone else that person's going to show, and now I've pulled them into an ethics hearing.
Right.
It's that constant struggle of which is the right way to do it. But if you look at the preamble of the code of ethics, part of our duties as agents is to self-police and help keep people accountable for their actions.
Well, and we did do an episode about like, should you tattle on other agents?
Mhm.
And then I think too, if people are interested in this conversation, you and I sat down with Saul Klein, which,
Yes.
yeah. Do you want to tell them about that? And who's
Yeah, it was a little bit of a longer form conversation, but we had a long conversation about how personal ethics and professional ethics can kind of be intertwined, where the line kind of cuts off for most of us. I think all three of us agree that the religion part of it gets a little bit dicey.
Right.
And I think maybe something might come of that in the future. You just never know. I think there's a lot of crossover in the code of ethics when it comes to discrimination and federal fair housing.
Right.
So a lot of those things, they're just taking that information. It's already illegal.
Yeah, it's
You're just
already
saying
there.
now
It's
it's also unethical. It's another way to hold people accountable.
I know, but it makes me crazy because these are the same like agents that will do addendums for things that are already written in the contract.
Oh, dude, just dealt with
Like,
one last
come
night.
on.
I'm like, why are we initialing this? It's already an as-is sale. Why do we have to say the water softeners as is? We already know that.
It's as is.
But sure, if you would like an extra set of initials, I'll be glad to put it right
Oh
there.
my God, here's addendum 27B-4.
Right. Right. Let's talk about the left foot of the stove being as is too.
Right.
I mean, it can get out of control
It
a
can
little
get
bit.
out of hand. But I think if
Right,
people
right.
like these kind of like higher level conversations, they're interested in this,
Yeah.
they should see our episodes we do with Saul Klein. He's been in real estate for over 40 years. He has tons of contacts. He was a trainer. He was the person
Yes.
who actually got real estate listings online, like on the internet.
Right.
Like he did that. So he has
The
some
godfather, the self-proclaimed godfather of real estate is what we're calling him.
godfather. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So-
But no, he's got a lot of history and a lot of
Yeah.
he's seen things happen from, again, 45 years ago through now, and how things have changed and evolved and prior to a lot of these things even being part of the code of ethics. But I think, when you look at the code of ethics, again, it's all related to real estate. So when you're talking about, yes, it's illegal to discriminate against people, but when you dial it in a little bit further, it's illegal to discriminate against people and then not show them properties in areas that you feel they might not belong.
Right.
So that's kind of where the code of ethics ties it in a little bit more to real estate specifically versus just this broad,
in general.
no, you can't discriminate.
No, that makes sense. Well,
So the question then becomes, who did I side with?
I'm not telling you. No.
You can't tell me. No, come on.
No, we kind of all agree, basically.
Yeah,
It's a sticky.
you are who you are.
Topic.
No piece of paper and no document is going to dictate. And I'm not saying this to be stubborn, but I'm saying it's just realistically, it's not possible for you to hand me a piece of paper, or a completely unethical person a piece of paper, and say this is how you must behave.
Or take
You
a
either are going
class and they're like, okay, I get it now.
right. You're either an ethical person in your mind and your brain and your body, or you're not.
Right.
And I don't think any code of anything is going to change that.
Definitely not. All right, Rachel, if people want to get a hold of you and they have a referral in Chicago, or they have a question for you, what is the best way?
Best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688, or via email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Awesome. And if they want to watch this longer form conversation, they can go to the Real Estate Fight Club podcast YouTube page and look for the playlist called Better Call Saul, and it's in there. All right, Rachel,
Yes.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me.
Bye.